Hey there, welcome to the 19th Easy jQuery tutorial, part of easyprogramming.net. In the last 4 tutorials, we wrote a kind of a CRUD application where I showed you how to create, read, update, and delete data using simple API calls. The backend of my application was an Express.js custom application, but you can use this idea with any APIs, whether you're working with Google or Facebook or Twitter or your own custom API. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to modify your HTML and your jQuery and turn this into a complete application that you can manage through the UI. So if you'll notice that there are a couple of changes made to our HTML form here, where I have a new tutorial button and some controls column here. I won't go over all the changes I made into the HTML, but I'll just give you a brief synopsis of what this is. You can always check out this file, which is going to be posted on easyprogramming.net, and read the source. So I have 2 forms here, one called new form, which is a form that will appear when we click on the new tutorial button. As you can see, it already toggles back and forth. And an update form, which will appear when we click on the update button here. It's not wired yet. When we click on the update button, it will create a new form and fill in all the data for us to update, and it'll update. For simplicity's sake, I did this way instead of making it inline editable here. I may show that in the future if there is interest in learning how to do that as well. It's much easier to do in Angular, which I plan on covering in the future. So do subscribe and come back for that. So I won't go over the HTML, and I'll show you just what the changes that I made here. So the changes I made here is the first one is the new tutorial button. It's this button here, which toggles the view of that button, so of the new form element. I also appended and edit and delete icons using the font awesome here, so that we can click on these buttons and edit or delete our items. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be working with the code that we wrote before, and we're going to consume them into with our HTML forms. But before we do that, we need to do a couple more things. First thing we want to do is we want to look at our new tutorial form. Right now this won't do anything, so if I click on add tutorial, fill this in, nothing will happen, the page will just refresh. So we want to tie this submit tutorial button with an on event listener. So we'll do submit tutorial on, click function, send in the event, close this, and we're going to read the form elements. So the best way to do this is we'll just store it into a function, into a variable called, let's call it data, and we'll create an object out of it. So we'll do tutorial number, let's do new form, because that's what we're reading. I did go over how to read form items, form elements, so if you want to learn more about this, please feel free to check out that tutorial where I go over in depth what I am doing here. But if you have any questions, please do ask. So the 0th form .tut num and .val. So we're getting the value of that. I'm going to copy this 3 times, and change this to title, author, and type. Right, we want to get those values. Whoops, copying and pasting. And get rid of that. And right now what we're doing is when the submit tutorial button is clicked, it gets all of the values from this form and stores it into an object in the data variable. So next what we're going to do is we want to be able to send this data to our post method, which is here. So I'm actually going to cut and paste this and move it up here, and actually also comment it out. There we go. The next thing I want to do is I want to actually encase this in a function of its own. So we'll call it function, let's do post tutorial, and we are looking to get some data. Right. Let's cut this. Yeah. Okay. So now the data is data, right? So the next thing we want to do is, since we're getting the data, we're going to be getting the data in a neat JavaScript object here. We can just get rid of this object here and just call it data, because that's where we're getting from the parameter of this method. And everything looks good. So now after we click this button, we want to send the data there. So we'll do post tutorial data. So it's sending the data. Let's make sure I missed nothing, right? Whoops. Yeah, something seems off. The tabbing seems off, but whatever, that's not important. We'll do new form dot. We'll trigger a reset. So if we don't do this, the items that we entered into this form will remain here even after the add tutorial is done. And we'll do, let's do e.prevent default, so that the page doesn't refresh, doesn't take us anywhere else. I'm just going to just double check this and make sure that everything looks good. I think everything looks good. We're logging to the console, and then at the end we're calling get tutorials to refresh the table. So I'm going to save this, and if I go here and I will refresh, right, under the question mark at the end, whatever. So now if I do new tutorials, you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 for some reason. Let's create a 5. Title, right, new GUI tutorial. Author is me, and type is let's do jQuery tutorial. Just put the whole thing in there, and if I add this, and if everything worked well, it'll add a new row here. So if I do add, it did add a new row. It did not take the tutorial number for some reason. This is where troubleshooting comes into play. So do tutnum. So this is where text case can be really annoying, because I did tut num, capital N. So there we go. After I changed it, I changed save. So 5, right? Whoops. GUI tutorial, Nazmus, and jQuery. And if I do add now, hopefully it works. There you go, and it gets the 5. That's completely my fault because I didn't see the text case. So anyway, the next thing we want to do is to get rid of that form, we can do like a toggle here after it resets. So we'll add one more. We'll do 6, right? Test tutorial, right? Let's do easyprogramming.net. Everything, type of everything. If I do this, there you go, it goes away, and we have this in our list in order, in the order that it was entered. So we have our post function consumed with our HTML form. Pretty cool, right? So the next two things we're going to do is going to be pretty similar to this, and we're going to consume our our put and our delete APIs, our delete methods, and tie them to these buttons here. So I'm actually going to move the put up here and uncomment so that it's there to use, and I'm going to surround this in its own function, in its own method. So we'll do put tutorial. Remember, we need the ID because this needs to, we need to tell the application what the ID is, and of course the change data, which is this form here. So just like the post one, we'll get rid of this, and we'll do data, and we'll get rid of this, and concatenate the ID that's coming from our parameter here from this method. So we have that done, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect these buttons here to the put tutorial method that we just created. So what did I call them? Here, if we look up here, edit tut and delete tutorial. So let's see. So how JavaScript works is that it loads everything from top to bottom. So the way that this is working is that these buttons will load before any of these functions are loaded. So we need to actually load these buttons. We need to tie these buttons to the methods after they're created. So the trick to doing that is I'm going to create a function called, I'll call it load buttons, right? And we'll do edit tutorial because it's a class dot edit. Do a simple click instead of an on click. We'll do function and we'll do I'll actually need to create another function. So right now we'll do prevent default here so that when you click on this, nothing happens. And what I didn't show you in our get tutorials is that this function lets you get everything, but what if you want to just get one thing? And that's what we need for our updates, because we want to grab just one item and update that instead of grabbing all of them and having our application be confused. So let's actually create a function called getOneTutorial ID. So it'll require the parameter of ID and argument of ID, and we'll do, actually I'm just going to copy this because it's going to be really similar. There we go. We don't need everything here. Do I need everything here? I don't need everything here, but we'll need the data that's being returned, and we don't need this. The method is fine. This is fine. We don't need the data here. And what's going to happen is we want to store all of this into we want to put all of this into the update form that we created here with the ID update form. To make it easier and so you don't watch me type all of this, I actually typed it out earlier, so I'm just going to copy and paste this and quickly go over it. So the update form, just like the new form, we can enter in the tutorial ID, the update number. The ID is the database ID, not the tut num that we struggled with a little bit earlier. The update number, the tutorial number that will be updated, the update title, the update author, the update type. These are all IDs for input elements inside the update form in our HTML. So once we have that, we'll also show the update form. Right now it's hidden from view, you can't see it. And there we go. So we need to trigger this, call this function with an ID. And we're going to do that in our load buttons here. So now we want to say that when the edit tutorial is clicked, we're going to get one tutorial, and the ID is going to be, I'm going to type this out and then explain it, right? 0 data and then tut ID. Okay, so what's happening here? So tut ID, data tut ID is the data attribute that I entered, that I am inputted into this element of I, which is the buttons that are created here. So like each of these buttons, if I inspect these, you'll see that if I zoom into this, you'll see that there is a data tutorial ID here for each of these items. Where's the button? There we go. And it's unique. And what this does is it's just injecting the database ID here into an HTML attribute that I can grab pretty easily using the JavaScript data tag. And we're targeting this, and we want to get the first item in this array, if that makes sense. So now I have this, so when I click on the edit button, it should open a new form, an update form, and populate whatever I decided to edit and do something, right? So we have get one, just double checking everything. We have this, right? Update form, it'll call this, and make sure if I'm not missing anything, and I am missing something. We need to be able to we need another function that looks like the submit tutorial for the update tutorial button. So I'll do this under the put tutorial, because I have another button here called update tutorial. So this update tutorial will get all of the forms. It's not going to be new form anymore. It'll be the update form. Everything else will stay the same. So update form. Once we have this, it won't be post tutorial. It'll be update tutorial. What did I call it? Put tutorial, right? Put tutorial, and we'll need to send it the data. Sorry, the tut ID, which will be, I'm just going to copy this, right? So it'll be this, and it'll be tut ID, because that's being stored there in the HTML. It's one of it's one of the things that we're getting, so it's going to be the ID here. So okay, so I think I got everything here. So update form, ID value, yeah, and this will be update form reset and toggle. Now if I save this and I refresh this, so I'll get rid of this. I broke something. Let's see, uncaught identifier on line 88. I left something here somewhere. Right. Need that. Set this. Whoops. There we go. Didn't close that function properly. Now if I refresh, there we go. Error is gone. Now if I update this, it should give me a form. No, didn't give me a form. Let's see. Oh, that's right. I did not trigger the load buttons. Whoops. Okay, so let's see. Where would I trigger the load buttons? We'll do them after it's loaded here. So we have the success function here, right after it. So we'll do load buttons, right? Whoops. Wow. Okay, so load buttons. And I will come back here, make sure that we're setting the ID in the URL, and make sure that everything looks good to the ID, right? So now if I go back, if I refresh this and I click on update, it does grab everything. So tutorial number is blank because we didn't have one here. If I click on this, it does get it. As you can see, it does update automatically. So now if I change this to a 9 and I click on update, it actually deleted everything. Great. And of course everything got deleted because I got all of this wrong. So it's not tutnum, it's update num, and it'll be update title when we're updating, because I changed it to that. Update author, because they're all IDs, and update type. So if I go back here, refresh this, right, this did get deleted. So if I do what number was that? It's gonna be 9, right? Updated tutorial, right? Updated Nazmus, and then right, easy programming, whatever. Now if I close this, if I update, there you go. So we got 9 updated tutorial. Everything looks good. So now if I'm just gonna add another one for sanity's sake, for sanity check. We'll do our test tutorial now. Nazmus and easy programming type. Man, it's a type for some reason. So if I add, it goes away. So we have this here. If I refresh this, you'll see that it's in the database. So it's getting it every time. And if I do this, it's everything here now. Updated. Update. And there you go, it's been updated. If I want to change this here, right, GUI tutorial updated, update, there you go, updated. It's the reason it's being moved to the bottom is because of how the backend is, the backend Express.js app is actually getting the data from the Mongo database, and it's getting it based on update date. So the oldest is first, and then so on. So if I change the third tutorial to updated, can't do that one. Updated because it's number. Blah, 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 and we get it here. There, you can change it by changing the queries later, which I'm not going to care about right now. So the last thing left to do is the delete, right? Pretty simple. So we're going to uncomment this. It's going to be down here, and I'll create a tutorial or function called delete tutorial. I'll keep it all pretty simple. It'll need an ID, and I'll copy this or cut it, paste it here, right, this, and we're going to send it the ID here. So we'll do ID, and the way we're going to get the ID is we're going to go back to the load buttons here, and we're going to say, right, delete tut, the tutorial, right, this is what I called it, right, delete tutorial class. So when this is clicked, we'll do function we'll do delete tutorial, and then we'll send it. I'm just going to copy this again because that's exactly what we're sending right there, blah, and then we'll do prevent default so that the form doesn't refresh. Get rid of all these extra spaces, and the delete is super simple. So everything looks good here. Now if I go back here, I'll refresh this, and let's see which one I want to delete. I want to delete this 10th one, right? So if I click on delete, it disappears, right? So if I refresh this, it's not here anymore because it was deleted. If I delete this, There you go. It's not the best system because it's not asking you for confirmation like, hey, are you sure you want to delete this? It's pretty destructive. And like even in our the backend, if you hit the API URL directly, you'll see that they get deleted. So if I deleted this updated tutorial, whoops, not that. Let me refresh. Updated tutorial, delete it. It was number 9 here, right? So this is going to disappear. There you go. It's gone. Pretty cool, right? So I hope you've learned a little bit of how to consume your jQuery CRUD applications, your CRUD methods with HTML forms. I will post all of this on easyprogramming.net, so be sure to visit and take a look. I'm sorry that this was such a long tutorial. I want to take some time and show you how to actually create forms that connect to methods that actually do things on a backend somewhere. And I hope you've learned something. If you have any questions, please ask. It is a lot. This was probably one of my longest tutorials ever, so feel free to pause and go back and ask me questions. I'm more than happy to help you. Thanks for watching. Have a great one. Come back for more tutorials. I'm working on some Raspberry Pi tutorials, and of course I'll working on some mean tutorials to show you how to create your own CRUD, ExpressJS applications. For which I do have something in the playground for CRUD in ExpressJS. It's just not a video. Thanks for watching. Have a great one.